On June 3rd, 2012, what was supposed to be a domestic routine flight in Nigeria going from Abuja to Lagos ended in one of the country's deadliest aviation disasters. This is the story of Dana Air Flight 0992. Stay tuned. The flight was operated by Dana Air, a popularly known Nigerian local carrier that began operations in 2008. They were known for this series of aircrafts that they usually fly because, this was one of the most prominent aircraft models they had in their fleets. This was the beautiful McDonnell Douglas MD-83, and the flight today in question was 20 years old. On today's flight, there were about 147 passengers on board, 6 crew members, making the total of 153 people on board today. This aircraft was supposed to fly 4 legs on that very day, from Lagos to Abuja, the first leg, Abuja back to Lagos on the second leg, Lagos to Abuja the third leg, and the final leg, which was flight 0992. As just having concluded its third leg, it went through the routine turnaround checks, which included disembarking passengers, having new passengers come on board, and refueling. At about 8,000 pounds of fuel was added. There was no record of any major technical defects from the previous flights, from the third flight. So, with that being said, the fourth leg was set to go. The duration of this flight was supposed to take approximately 50 minutes. The aircraft departed at about 2:58 p.m. and the estimated arrival time was 3:45 p.m. The takeoff and climb was perfectly normal. The aircraft had climbed to about 26,000 feet and established connection with air traffic control in Lagos at about 3:18 p.m. From air traffic control's perspective, the flight was routine, normal. However, the cockpit voice recorder that was recovered from the crash would reveal a couple of things. At about 17 minutes after takeoff, the cockpit voice recorder recorded that there were conversations about one of the engines, specifically engine 1, that started losing power. This was not a complete engine shutdown, and no emergencies were declared by the crew. At this point, the aircraft was still cruising at altitude, and like I said, this was not a complete engine shutdown. There were just some inconsistencies and a reduced power output that the crew were discussing. At this point, there was still the option to divert to another airport and land, but the investigation later concluded that the crew didn't take this issue as seriously as they should, so they kept on going with the flight. It descended past 18,100 feet and 7,700 feet at about 3:40 p.m. And during this phase of descent towards Lagos, engine number 2 also started losing power. Now, the aircraft was experiencing severe thrust loss on both engines, and the cockpit voice recorder captured a crucial conversation between the pilots, basically the captain and the first officer. So the captain asked, "Are both engines coming up?" The captain responded negative. At about 2 minutes just after they descended past 7,700 feet, the crew declared an emergency, reporting dual engine failure, negative response from the throttle. At this point, the aircraft was cleared to approach at runway 18 right, and the runway was literally in sight. They attempted to restart the engines. They attempted some aircraft configuration changes like flaps, gear down, slats, all of that, and these attempts were unsuccessful. The final words from the captain were, "We just lost everything." At approximately 1 minute after they declared an emergency, 3:43 p.m. Nigerian time, Dana Air Flight 0992 crashed into a residential area in Ilu Ishaga at about 5.8 miles north of Lagos Airport. There was a large post-impact fire, and some sources reveal that eyewitnesses say when the plane crash landed, it didn't burst into flames, that there was still time for emergency services to come and save some people because they could see that there was people trying to come out before the plane eventually had a post-impact fire. However, there are no sources to confirm if this was true or not. All 153 people on board were killed, including 6 people on the ground. A few days after the crash, Dana Air Flight's operating license was suspended and a full investigation was launched. The Nigerian Accident Investigation Bureau concluded that the crash was caused by a combination of factors: loss of power in both engines and crew response and decision-making failures. The investigation cited that they lacked to incomplete the checklist that lets them know what to do when you lose 2 engines, and the failure to divert to another airport when they noticed the first error with engine 1. The training changes that followed this crash was the enforcement of the use of checklists, how important it is to use your checklists. There was also some enforcement on the decision-making skills of the pilots, because if they decided to divert to another airport when engine 1 failed, there could have been a chance that this crash could have been prevented. In regards to compensation, the families of the victims were due to receive about $100,000 in compensation each, but it was only reported that 11 families received their full package of $100,000, while about 95 families received only a partial payment of about $30,000. My condolences go out to the family of the victims who were involved, and I genuinely hope that they find rest and they've grieved properly and they find peace. Sending out lots of love to the family of the victims that were involved in this crash, and my condolences go out to them. If you enjoyed the breakdown of this story, consider subscribing, leaving a comment and letting us know what you think about this story. If you think we've truly moved on, or if you think we've truly learned from the crashes as an industry in aviation. This is Aviation Fails, and I'll catch you in the next one.